done first. Okay, there we go. So we're back with session 4 from Dependency to Synergy, building community referral networks for preventive legal advocacy and pre-petition programs. And our panelists for this session are Jennifer Stoller, staff attorney with the Family Defense Project at Youth Rights and Justice in Oregon, and then also Jill Bauer, who is a staff attorney with the pre-petition program at Legal Services of South Central Michigan. And while I'm introducing Jill, I told her I would do a little plug here. Jill has actually just published a memoir this week about her time representing parents. That memoir is titled The Civil Death Penalty, Losing Children to the State, a memoir of sorts from an underdog attorney. I am going to drop a link to that because I am sure that there are many people on the call that would be interested in checking that out. So there's that. And let's see, with that, I'm going to turn it over to both of you.
Hello. Jennifer and I agreed, or I'm going to go first. So, and thank you, Emily, for putting this all together. What an amazing accomplishment. And thank you for telling about my book. The ebook is available now and the paperback will be available December 22nd. And so just to give you a little bit of background, I started working at Legal Services in the Ann Arbor, Michigan area about 18 months ago. I had returned to the area and I thought I was just applying for a regular staff attorney position. And they actually had a 4E program that they were getting off the ground. And I had represented parents for about 10 years in Flint, Michigan. So it was just a perfect fit and I love it. It's amazing. It's terrific to be able to help families before they're traumatized. And so I got this program. It's the grant is wide open. We don't have a lot of restrictions on where our referrals come from. So there was an opportunity to be very creative. So we started with trying to build a relationship with the Department of Health and Human Services. And we just found that we weren't getting many referrals from them. And we were actually getting a lot of post-petition referrals from attorneys who were representing parents and discovering, ancillary legal needs that needed to be taken care of so that cases could close. And, that was great to, be able to do things to get children returned home and get cases closed. But we really wanted to be there upstream and we wanted to prevent, run interference with investigations and help people avoid even coming on to Child Protective Services radar. And so our office has developed quite a few ways to find clients and get referrals. So one thing is we do a clinic twice a week and it's purportedly a housing clinic, but we do screen for prior CPS involvement and we do screen for cases where there are children involved. And so we do a lot of eviction prevention and voucher, avoiding voucher termination. So the housing clinic was one way that we got a lot of referrals. And then I've gone out and presented to a lot of local nonprofit or government organizations. So community mental health. I don't know if everywhere it's called community mental health, but here in Michigan, it's called community mental health. I've presented to the staff on several occasions just to kind of remind them that we're in existence and what kind of things we can help with. And I've developed good relationships with several people that work for community mental health, one being a supervisor. And so we get a lot of referrals from that source. And then Washtenaw County, where I live, they have an amazing public health program. They have workers that work with families almost like they're public health workers, nurses and such, but they do a lot of social work as well. And so I presented to that group and gotten regular referrals from them. And I've even a couple of times gotten referrals for people that are in the midst of a Child Protective Services investigation. And I've been able to run interference and get the investigation closed. So that has been amazing as a parent defense attorney to be able to do that kind of work before a case even gets into court. when there's an active investigation is like the ideal case. And that's the kind of thing that we're trying to do more of. And then I've got a couple other community organizations, shelter organizations and such that I've got presentations scheduled for. So, local nonprofits, government agencies that are working with our population of clients, building relationships with them has been really successful. And then a couple of things that are in the works, I put together a Know Your Rights presentation, and I'm in the process of connecting with a school. And the idea for the school is that I'll do the Know Your Rights presentation or a series of presentations to help the school community know that my program exists and that, what kinds of things we can help with. And then I'm planning to do office hours at the school, be there. We haven't quite settled it. It'll either be twice a month or once a week, but just be there at a specific day and time where community members can just drop in and ask questions and possibly, get assistance with situations that could lead to a CPS investigation, or they can come in and get advice if they are being investigated. And then a couple other things, I've gone to community events at housing, at like low income or subsidized housing communities, and tabled those events. I did find out that it is a very good idea to bring a little bit of swag with you. I was one of the only tables at the first community event that I went to that did not have swag. And I had some people that didn't stop at my table. So I recently purchased like stickers and things like that for the kids. And so I think that can go a long way in getting people to talk to you and, getting them to kind of open up if they have any legal needs. And that could lead to Child Protective Services involvement or even just family instability. So those are the main ways that I've been able to successfully build community relationships. And then the great thing that's happening now is we're getting referrals from clients. So the clients that we've worked with, if they know someone who has a need that they think we can help with, then they're giving our information out, and we're getting, so it's like second generation referrals already. So, and I know that this is about to be how to build community relationships, but I thought I'd also tell about the kind of the range of services that we're providing. So we're assisting with public benefits, social security applications and denials. We do refer the denials out to pro bono attorneys. We're helping with housing issues. We're doing MISHDA hearings to reinstate vouchers that have been terminated. We're assisting with custody orders. We're referring PPO needs out to the local shelter that assists with that. And we're doing some revocation of paternity and establishment of paternity. And I don't know if I already said this, custody cases, and then the occasional power of attorney, so that a parent can avoid Child Protective Services investigation by placing the child with someone that they choose. So, and it feels like that went really quickly, but think that's most of what I wanted to say. So I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Hello. I had to chuckle at the swag comment because I have also found that to be true at tabling events, that you need something, and some of the nonprofits come with quite an array of pencils and bandanas and all sorts of things. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Did I actually? Okay. So we, here at Youth Rights and Justice, so I'm a staff attorney here. We are a public defense provider of dependency and delinquency representation. We also have some school advocacy here. So I think it was good for Jill and I to be on the same panel, her coming from the legal aid side and us coming from the defense side. And this work really grew out of our work representing parents and children in dependency cases and seeing the ways that CPS investigations could have gone differently, ways that if people's legal issues had been addressed ahead of time, we could have avoided a situation. I think that a lot of those of us, and I'm sure Jill feels the same, a lot of us who have done parent defense see how a removal can cause like the house of cards to collapse, and that the family was holding it together and then and could have kept holding it together, but the removal really causes everything to fall apart. So about 2 years ago, we got some grant funding to initiate this program. About half of my time is spent doing the family defense work, and about half of it is a regular caseload of parents and children. And then I have a full-time family engagement specialist, a social worker who used to be a child protective services worker at our agency, Department of Human Services, or DHS. It's been incredibly helpful to have her with that experience, understanding how investigations go. I think what's also been really nice for us, there was a question earlier in Legal Aid of Chicago's presentation about how do you get workers to talk to you. And I would say that one of the advantages that Olivia and I both have is that we know a lot of these people already through our work. And I'm generally happy when the lawyers get involved, because often I can, they'll be more upfront about what the legal issues are and whether they can meet the standard. So we started out reaching out to our DHS local offices, district management, about the possibility of sending us referrals. I don't know why I was naive enough to think that would be appealing to them, that they would want to help address some of these issues. But from the beginning, they have been very wary, at least at the management level, of having their workers send us referrals. I'd say by and large, my interactions with line workers are positive. They don't mind me being there. Of course, there are certain situations where they would prefer I wasn't there. But for the most part, they don't view a lawyer being involved as a problem for their investigation, in part because I have found that if I'm present, my client is workers give me the feedback that my client is better able to engage when they feel supported. So when our department was not interested in working with us, we started looking to other models across the country, but also thinking about, who do we get referrals from? Who interacts with our client population? Who are the mandatory reporters? And how can we start reaching out to them? Treatment providers have been a big source of referrals for us. Substance use treatment programs, medication assisted treatment providers. Particularly, we have a program here that works with pregnant people with substance use disorders, and they are a big source of collaboration and referrals. Peer mentors of all types, whether they're recovery mentors, parent mentors, people like that. Those have been a source of referrals. It's been quite interesting, actually, looking back at our case list, because we track where cases come from, to see just the wide array of providers that we have, which feels like a much more solid network of people and ongoing referrals than relying on one source. Healthcare providers are another source for us, hospital social workers. As a side note, I would say that when we have a person who has just delivered and there is going to be a hotline call, hospital social workers are often happy when we arrange it, that they make the hotline call in front of our client with us present. They will, so that we know exactly what's being said. And then we immediately follow up with our department to find out who is assigned and coordinate a time so that we are present with our client if they come out to do an assessment. We've had some limited success with pediatricians. I think a lot of what happens is that healthcare providers, you can tell them once this program exists and they're, in their 15-minute increments of seeing patients, it can be hard for them to remember. I presented to the Addiction Medicine Fellowship at our local university, Oregon Health Sciences University. They send, once they train people, they're at the different treatment programs around the city. So that has been helpful. We've had some engagement with health system navigators. So I don't know if, I assume that other places have this, where if there's complex medical needs of a child, often either the hospital system or the Medicaid provider will have kind of a health system navigator that helps the family with the complex needs. And so we have presented to that group. I hope to do some more outreach to public health clinics. I think one of the other big themes is that and it made me think of Ron talking about Oklahoma. It made me feel a little better, actually, that he's continually having to remind workers that this exists that their program exists, because we are continually having to reach back out, turnover, people just being overwhelmed with what they're doing. It's a constant process of reaching out. There are service providers. So I'm in Portland and Oregon, and one of the things that I have realized more and more doing this work is just the wealth of resources we have in this community that are very disconnected from each other. They're doing really great work, but don't necessarily know about each other. And I am absolutely guilty of that as well. And so just continually trying to educate myself about what's out there. There's a teen parenting program that for a while there, we're getting some really great referrals from, because often teen parents are at high risk of CPS involvement. And then the people working there all turned over, and we've been getting less. Some parent education programs. Certainly there are the parent education programs that the department works with. And so I have often worked with a lot of those in representing parents and making sure that they know about us. Domestic violence shelters and other service providers to victims of domestic violence. A couple of weeks ago, we got a referral from a domestic violence program that I hadn't even heard of before. So I'm honestly not sure how they got our information, but it made me happy that our information is getting out there. Homeless shelters and other day shelters. There's in particular here a day shelter for women and children that has sent us some cases, some programs working with teen homeless youth. And if they are pregnant or parenting, referring to us. One of the areas that we have tried to reach out to with limited success are programs that are providing services to immigrants. A parent advocate from the National Alliance on Mental Illness referred a client to us that was a really good, appropriate referral, someone in a CPS investigation. A little bit From our juvenile justice system, because we do both dependency and delinquency. We know a lot of those people, and I was actually in a meeting yesterday to work on getting some more referrals. If a probation officer is working with a family and there's a juvenile with a delinquency case, it may well be that CPS is looking at the family as a whole. So having that available. We are kind of continually trying to find referral networks. Again, things that I didn't know existed. Our state bar website, 211, is an organization. I assume other places have a version of this, but 211 is a website and a hotline where people can call in for different services. We got, and we're on that website. Any other clearinghouses for service providers. We have something called the Community Services Network that exists to connect different service providers. So they do some tabling fairs that we have done, some which are for other service providers and some which are for individuals. They also hold monthly presentations, and we have presented to them. I also encourage reaching out to other nonprofit legal service providers. For us, I am often talking to our legal aid office, which is not necessarily interested in creating a program like Jill's or like Legal Aid Services of New Jersey, but is happy for me to contact them and ask questions, refer clients to them directly, provide a lot of support. We have a couple of sliding scale legal providers here that do a variety of things, and they are also willing to get referrals from me or send me referrals. Immigration nonprofit organizations, if they're working with families that, particularly families that are undocumented, the CPS process is quadruply terrifying. I also have really worked, I'm part of the juvenile defense bar here. And while we're a pretty big county and city, we're a relatively small bar. As you all know, once you get started doing this work, this is what you do and you're sucked in. And but I'm, continually communicating with people, communicating with the bench, with all kind of the stakeholders within our community. And so, for example, I have had other firms reach out to me to say, we have a conflict in representing this person pre-petition. Can you do it? Or I have said, oh, mom contacted me. She and dad are together and aligned. And I've reached out to other providers and asked them if they would take a case pre-petition. And it's not really a joke. It's true that I actually feel a lot more gratified when someone else is willing to take on one of these cases, because I think it's work that we need to be doing system-wide. And so I'm really happy to see that work being done.
Jennifer, I'm sorry to interrupt. Somebody asked in the chat and I want to make sure you might not have gotten there yet, but are your slides supposed to be advancing? Because we're not seeing them advance on our end.
Oh, well, they're supposed to be, but no. Okay. Well, they are already uploaded to the Google Drive. So you all will be able to watch them there.
Perfect. We'll send those out. But if you want, I don't know if maybe you start right on our side, it still is like showing your home screen. So I don't know if maybe you can try to screen share again and maybe reboot it there. Okay, perfect. All set. But I will share this with the recording, everybody, so you'll get a copy of the slides. But thank you, Jennifer. Now it's working.
Okay. I don't know. And I thought it might be helpful to talk about where we're looking to go next. So as I've said, our department is not has not been interested in sending us referrals. Though, to be honest, there are workers who don't realize that that's the policy of management, and they will call me with referrals to say this person really needs some help with a restraining order or custody. So our next steps are connecting with the half of our Department of Human Services that does the public benefits. There are people that are family navigators there that are excited to start partnering with us. They're also in some low-income schools. They have some office hours, and also with our school advocacy team, I think we're looking to how can we have some hours at schools and trade off and back each other up. We're hoping to get more involved with school social workers and also with alternative schools in our community. And thinking about what Jill said about what sorts of issues do we assist with, I would say that what's ironic to me in our department not choosing to work with us because of their concern of having attorneys involved in investigations. What's ironic to me is that I think I actually get involved in more investigations than I might otherwise as a percentage of my work get involved, because that's when other people think to call me, other organizations, is when someone's being investigated. And so I get involved in a fair amount of investigations. We will do a lot of sort of short-term representation. So I have represented clients in contested restraining order hearings, depending on the particular client. I have also just helped them prepare for it. Like, let's help you get a subpoena together to get this service provider to come in. Let's talk about how you go about representing yourself. And it depends on the client and their comfort level and their capability, but some clients have done really well with that advice and getting into court themselves on custody, restraining orders, other things. And certainly if there's an attorney on the other side, I'm more likely to represent them. But I also make clear that we're short-term assistance. I can't get involved in a lengthy custody case. It's just not within our capacity. And so getting some short-term protective order, some immediate danger order hearings in place, things like that, advising people about guardianships. One of the things that concerns me, it was interesting to hear that Illinois has the 1-year guardianship option, because at least here it's either a power of attorney, which can be revoked at any time, or it's a probate guardianship. So I guess we do, in theory, the powers of attorney are effective for 6 months, but it's pretty widely known that those can be revoked at any time. And so our department won't accept those as a stopgap measure to keep kids safe while parents are dealing with whatever issues brought them to the attention of the department. So they want a probate guardianship, which is incredibly hard to get undone if there's any kind of estrangement within the family. And so we don't initiate those. We don't help people file those, but I certainly give advice. And I have had parents decide, after a lot of discussion and what I felt like was making the most informed decision that they could under the circumstances, go ahead and consent to that. I've also had parents initially consent and regret that, not consent when I was involved, but then later hear about me and come back, and I've helped them file a withdrawal of the consent before the guardianship is finalized, and then the agency does become involved. So I guess my takeaways is that it takes a lot of persistence, especially, for those of us who, I was previously at Legal Aid a couple decades ago, For those of us in public defense and legal aid, we are used to people just coming to us. It's what I joke that is why I went into this work, is that so I would not have to look for clients. And so it takes a lot of persistence, a lot of continually reaching out, and also a lot of flexibility in your schedule, because you never know, you know, my schedule can look relatively blank 2 weeks out, and then you get a referral and suddenly everything needs to happen really fast. And for somebody who's used to having my calendar full of dependency hearings 4 to 6 months out, it can be a little disconcerting. But the work is also incredibly personally rewarding. It's really rewarding to be able to minimize, a CPS investigation is traumatic, or the circumstances that lead them to need legal assistance are traumatic. But if you can prevent removal and you can help get the agency out of their lives sooner, it's just incredibly rewarding as someone who's been doing this for a long time. So now I'm going to try stop sharing, and I think Jill and I are happy to answer questions.
Yes, I just have to say that there's been drilling in my building behind me periodically, so I hope if you hear a loud noise, that's what's going on. I wanted to respond to a couple things that Jennifer said. The thing that's interesting in my situation is that I'm on a couple advisory boards with the higher up. There are 2 higher up people in the local Department of Health and Human Services, and they're actually very supportive of the program, and they keep having me come back and give talks to their staff. It's at the staff and supervisor level where I'm not getting referrals, and I think it's a control issue. They don't want to lose control of their investigation and their tactics that they use to kind of, I think, intimidate parents into doing what they want them to do and such. So it's an interesting dynamic. The other thing is, I was in private practice for 17 years, and I'm only quite new to legal services. So I have a lot of experience having to find clients, and I think that has come in handy in trying to develop, client streams. And the problem with my program is it's just me. I don't have any dedicated support staff. I'm the only one. So if I'm too successful in dredging up client streams, it can become kind of overwhelming. So you might want to keep that in mind. If you might want to trickle out your efforts, because if you do everything all at once, we had a period where I was just kind of overwhelmed with referrals. And also the advice about avoiding too much involvement in custody cases, I think is really good, because those can get, they can, I think anyone who's done custody work knows that they can kind of spin out of control. And so we've kind of tried to stay in more of an advisory and advice role. But fortunately here, the judge that handles all of the what is referred outside of Michigan as dependency cases, but we call them child welfare cases. The judge here who handles, if I show up in an advisory capacity at a custody hearing, she will let me participate in the bench conferences so that I can give advice to the client. So there could be a little bit of value in developing a good relationship with the judges and being able to not have your name officially on a case, but also be able to advise effectively and impact the outcome.
Thank you guys. That was some great information. And I don't see questions coming in yet, but I have a couple of questions for you guys. I wanted to touch on, so this one first. So Jennifer, you had mentioned, I think you briefly stated that like you were trying to do some outreach with some of the immigration organizations in your community and you hadn't gotten a lot of traction in that. I've actually heard that from a couple of different programs. Do you have any thoughts on where that difficulty lies or what's making that process harder for you?
I wish I had a better answer about that because I actually have quite a professional relationship with one of the nonprofit immigration legal organizations because a small part of my practice is filing private petitions on behalf of unaccompanied minors, and we work with them on the immigration piece. So they're well aware of me. I communicating with them constantly. And I'm not really sure because certainly when I have talked to organizations, either nonprofit immigration legal services or those providing other kinds of services, they sound very excited about the project. And then nothing comes of it. And we'll send follow-up emails. We've started kind of tracking when we contact people and how often so that we're following back up, but we're not doing it so as to be annoying. But yes, I don't really know why that is.
Understood. It'd be great to know from some of the attendees, if your organization, if you're in this space doing preventive legal advocacy and pre-petition work, and you are looking at immigration issues or you have a good relationship and are pulling in referrals from that source, maybe drop that in the chat. I think it would be helpful to hear that. I also wanted to ask, and this is for both of you, on the referral front, so you all are working with a number of organizations in your community. Do you use set referral forms? I mean, is there a formalized process for those referrals as they're coming into you, or how does that work?
We did have a form, but we found that it was possibly a barrier to a referral because, you know, people are so busy. So we've really simplified it. They just need to send contact information for the potential client and a couple of sentences about what the case is about. And that's it. And we have an email that goes to me, our legal assistants in the building, not designated for my program, and my manager and supervisor. And so I think that has really made it easier for people at Community Mental Health or Washington Health Program or a couple other miscellaneous sources to do a referral.
We
So
found the same. We started out with a form and that was just felt like a barrier. And I will often, we have an email address and we have a phone number that people can contact directly, either a service provider or the client themselves. I have a fair number of people of service providers who have my cell phone and will just contact me and ask if a case is appropriate. We try to make it as low barrier as possible.
Yeah, and that's excellent, right? I think that's really good information and a good kind of lesson learned, right? As you all are doing the work. And I want to highlight something Jill noted. So Jill was saying, you know, she's kind of a one-man or one-woman show in this space with her organization, which I just want to highlight for those that are watching that aren't yet doing these programs or thinking about, you know, starting a new program with their organization or within their community, that we have a number, right, of people who are in Jill's situation that are just kind of going alone and just doing the work and grinding it out every day. And so, you know, you start somewhere, right? We don't have to start with a team of 30 attorneys. That's great if we can, if we're plugged into a big organization like that. But the work can be done in this sort of, you know, grassroots way, one practitioner at a time. So I think that's important to highlight.
I want to say, using law students over the summer interns is a fantastic way to get through a backlog of cases. Like I'm constantly having to assess the urgency of a case, and generally eviction cases or loss of housing vouchers are the highest priority because that's definitely going to put a family at high risk of involvement. So some of the less urgent things like the custody matters where the child is still placed with the parent become less urgent, but then over the summer, using law student interns is a great way to get all that paperwork generated and caught up. And then just one more thing I was thinking of, So if you're like me, your legal services, and you need referrals from someone in Jennifer's organization who might not have a 4E program or pre-petition program, it's really good to build relationships with the public defender's office and the contract attorneys that represent parents in your local county, because they get sometimes they get families who have needs that they can't really meet, but if you can get involved, maybe they're running interference with an investigation and you can assist them in getting an investigation closed.
Awesome. Thanks, Jill. All right, guys. Well, I want to draw attention. So Adam put in a good, some good feedback when we were asking about the immigration issue, noting that, that he's done some outreach like on radio programs and other things, which I think is awesome. That makes a lot of sense, right? To get to start to build up that trust and build a community around the work that you're doing. So thanks for putting that in there, Adam. But Jennifer and Jill, thank you all so much. So we've reached time. It's time to go on break. That was an excellent session. I hope that people feel encouraged and empowered to get out there and really start to build up these community referral networks. I think it's a really important, it's a vital part of the work that our programs do every day. So a big thank you to both of you, and we will head into break, and let's see, we will be returning now at 12:30. So we'll see you guys then.